Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Stuart Stedman, and I'm chair of the coordinating board. It is now 1:02 p.m., and I'd like to call the March 12th special called board meeting to order. This meeting is being held via video conference. Please be aware that although we're meeting via video conference, this meeting is still being broadcast via the internet. Before we begin, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome those joining us via video and ask that they observe the following etiquette. Please state your name before you speak, mute your microphone, and keep background noise to a minimum. Members will begin with a roll call to ensure that we have a quorum. When I call your name, please respond to confirm that you're on the call. Mr. Anwar?
Aye.
Ms. Dr. Frias?
Here.
Ms. Swartz?
Here.
Mr. Torn, I think he was going to be a little late. He'll be joining in a second. Ms. Williams?
I'm here.
Mr. Wilson?
Here.
Mr. McClaney?
Here.
And of course, I'm here as well. Members, please excuse the absence of Mr. Raven and Mr. Campbell, who are unable to join us today due to duties requiring their presence elsewhere. Please record in the minutes that we have a quorum. Item 2 on the agenda is public testimony. We've not had any request for public testimony, so we'll move on to agenda item number 3. Agenda item 3 is matters relating to the full board. Item 3A is consideration of adopting the recommendation to approve notice to the governor's office and the legislative budget board to exceed the agency's full-time equivalent cap relating to the transfer of Texas Encore staff from the University of Texas at Austin to the agency, as required by the General Appropriations Section 6.10. Mr. Ken Martin, Assistant Commissioner for Finance Services and CFO, will present this item and be available for questions. Mr. Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome board members. This particular item is regarding our FTE and a letter required by that article. As you know, the Texas Encore's team transitioned to the agency January of this year, as well as the associated staff. And there's approximately 30 FTE in that staff. And to let you know, an FTE is a full-time equivalent, and a full-time equivalent is somebody working 40 hours a week. If you had 2 people working 20 hours a week, combined, it would be the equivalent of 1 FTE. Well, we have in our General Appropriations Act, in our bill pattern for the agency, we have a cap, FTE cap, that we're limited to. Having the Encore's team transition over will have us potentially and quite possibly exceed that cap. So Article 9, Section 6.10 requires a letter from the board to the Legislative Budget Board and the governor, just notifying them each quarter that we will exceed that cap. And what we're asking permission for is board's approval to submit a letter on behalf of the board for Q2, Q3, and Q4 of this year to the LBB and the governor's office reporting such. Now, the next biennium, we have asked the legislature to include the Encore staff and funding in our bill pattern. The House version of Senate Bill 1 does include the Encore's team as well as the associated staff, and we believe the Senate's next version will have the same. So this requirement is only to bridge us through the rest of this year. It's not in our bill pattern. Next year, we will not have the requirement to submit this letter. So again, I'm just asking permission for the board and approval to submit a letter for Q2 through Q4 that would state that we will not exceed our current FTE cap by more than 10%, and this letter will be sent to the LBB and the governor's office. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'll move to approve. Emma Schwartz.
Excellent. Okay, so the motion to approve notice of governor's office and the legislative budget board to exceed the agency's full-time equivalent cap for the second term through fourth quarters of fiscal year 2021, as required by the General Appropriations Act, Article 9, Section 6.10. We have a motion by Ms. Swartz.
Second. Fred.
Second by Dr. Farias. Any further discussion? Members, when I call your name, please state your vote. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. Mr. Anwar?
Aye.
Dr. Frias?
Aye.
Ms. Swartz?
Aye.
Uh, Mr. Torn? Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The motion passes. Thank you. Item 3B is the commissioner's report to the board on exceptions or modifications.
This emergency rule recently became necessary to respond to another disaster, which was the severe winter weather that happened last month. So the rule enables the commissioner to modify reporting provisions to help mitigate the impact of a disaster on institutions. And then the commissioner is required to report back to the board on any actions that were taken, which is why we're coming to you today. So during the winter storm, the commissioner took action on a requirement that governs the date general academic institutions are required to collect tuition payments from students. Our rules require that those payments or a payment plan be in place by the 20th class day for a student to be reported for formula funding. For a few institutions, this 20th class day occurred during the winter storm. And due to the storm, many campuses were closed and staff and students were unable to work together to meet this requirement. So given this situation, the commissioner granted an extension for those institutions who were affected with the 20th class day during that week. And they were allowed to extend until March 5th. This would allow the institutions and students time to work together to finalize their payments. And that concludes my remarks. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? It's great that the commissioner, you have that power, because I mean, that is pretty obvious need out there. Anyway, Ms. Cormier, thank you very much for that presentation and update. Let's see, items 3C will be the transfer rules. Mr. Ray Martinez, Deputy Commissioner for Academic Affairs and Workforce Education, Dr. Stacy Silverman, Assistant Commissioner for Academic Quality, and Ms. Elizabeth Mayer, Senior Director for Policy, will provide a presentation covering all three rules under consideration today before we move to the individual items for motions. Deputy Commissioner Martinez will begin the presentation. Ray?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Vice Chair Farias and board members. I'm Ray Martinez, Deputy Commissioner for Academic Affairs and Workforce Education. My comments this morning, Mr. Chairman, will be brief before I turn things over to Stacy and to Elizabeth. The fact that this is now the third time that since last July that we've come before this board to discuss the proposed new Texas transfer framework signifies the importance of this policy initiative. Particularly for students across the state who are currently enrolled, of course, in our community colleges and who aspire to continue their post-secondary education in a four-year university. This board has heard us talk quite a bit over the last year or so about SB 25, which was important legislation passed in 2019 that implements various initiatives that will ultimately improve transfer rates and streamline transfer pathways in Texas. Building off of the momentum created by the passage and now implementation of SB 25, last April, at the urging of Commissioner Keller, our agency convened an important group of external stakeholders to help us focus on ways to improve vertical transfer in Texas. Too often, the transfer student experience involves navigating complex and confusing information about which courses to take or whether credit will transfer to a university. So specifically, Mr. Chairman, the focus of the work group was on improving the field of study curriculum, which is a set of lower division courses that transfer and apply to a degree program when a student transfers from a community college to a public four-year university. Now, although we knew it would not be easy from the start, the overarching goal of the work group was always clear: to develop a process that provides greater transparency and ease of use for the student, to ensure improved curricular alignment between our community colleges and our four-year universities, and ultimately to develop a governance structure for this new transfer framework that allows for genuine collaboration, buy-in, and accountability among our two- and four-year public institutions across the state. The work group began meeting last April. We met weekly through October, about 7 months or so of 90-minute Zoom calls, and it was at times grueling, contentious, but ultimately, I think, very meaningful work. Mr. Chairman, then, with a great deal of appreciation to all 10 work group members, not to mention some very dedicated agency staff members that I'm privileged to work with every day, we're pleased to come before this board today to present the proposed new Texas Transfer Framework for your consideration. I'm going to turn things over now to Stacy Silverman, our Assistant Commissioner for Academic and Health Affairs, to discuss in greater detail the transfer work group. Stacy.
Thank you, Ray. Good afternoon, Chairman Stedman, Vice Chairman Frias, and members of the board. The proposed rules before you this afternoon build on the transfer efforts underway as a result of Senate Bill 25 passed last session by the 86th Texas Legislature and the important work of the Improving Transfer in Texas work group. Next slide, please. Mary, can you go ahead one more, please? Thank you. Before we get into the details of the Texas Transfer Framework, I'd like to share that the two remaining requirements of Senate Bill 25 are now in place or well underway. Now in place is the new report on non-transferable credit. The coordinating board issued its first report last week, and it's posted on the agency's website. Importantly, the data and information in the report will help us gain a greater understanding and further explore transfer. The final requirement of SB 25 that is now well underway is the reporting of recommended course sequences. Beginning in the fall, institutions will report and publish at least one recommended course sequence for each undergraduate certificate or degree program they offer. Implementing these final provisions set forth in Senate Bill 25 will help ensure that Texas students can seamlessly transfer, reduces the loss of course credits, and helps ensure that students graduate in a timely manner. In building on Senate Bill 25, Commissioner Keller brought the Improving Transfer in Texas work group together to really study and think through transfer. Next slide, please. The Improving Transfer in Texas work group was comprised of an equal number of representatives from public community colleges and universities, with support from agency staff. As Ray mentioned, the work group met weekly and met more than 20 times beginning last April. Next slide, please. The work group heard from leaders from other states about their initiatives to improve transfer. This included hearing from folks from Georgia, Tennessee, Washington, California, and New York. The work group also reviewed the existing resources already in place that could be used to improve transfer, including the core curriculum, lower division academic course guide manual, field of study curriculum, and the Texas Common Course numbering system. Of particular note was the work group's commitment to shared responsibility, transparency, buy-in, and accountability. The work group members were sincerely committed to improving transfer. Next slide, please. The efforts of and the recommendation of the transfer work group culminated in the proposed rules before you today. Importantly, these rules are proposed within existing statutory authority and will allow for the formation of a new transfer committee. I'll now turn it over to Ray to explain the existing field of study curriculum.
Thank you, Stacy. And Mary, you can move forward to the next slide, please. So, Mr. Chairman and members, as this slide indicates, the statutory framework which authorizes this agency to develop field of study curricula has been in place for many years now, since 1997. Important and valuable work, particularly from faculty members with subject matter expertise across the state, has over the years gone into developing the 16 field of study curricula that currently are articulated by this agency. Now, we don't have them listed on this slide, but examples of current field of study curricula include one for biology, criminal justice, nursing, and sociology, to name but a few. Mary, if you can go to the next slide, please. And yet, as this slide indicates, of the nearly 37,000 students in 2019 who transferred from a community college to a four-year university, less than 2,000, or just about 5%, were reported as completing one of the 16 currently articulated field of study curricula. Now, for comparison purposes, we also looked at how many of these transfer students in 2019 were reported as completing the core curriculum, which is, of course, the set of foundational courses that comprise 42 semester credit hours. And as you can see from this slide, nearly 47% of transfer students had completed their core requirements. And one final point, Mr. Chairman, that I mentioned at our last board meeting, current data show that less than 35% of students who start at a community college transfer to a university within 6 years, even though many, if not a majority, of community college students aspire to earn a baccalaureate degree. We believe we can and should do better for our transfer students across the state by improving the way we articulate and implement field of study curricula, and that's what this new transfer framework is all about. And so now I'll turn things over. I'm sorry.
Yeah, could I ask just a clarification question? So the students who transferred from a community college, 5% completed field of study. Well, isn't field of study a major so that you would not expect, students in a 2-year university or college to have completed a major, or am I misinterpreting that?
Well, I think I don't have those numbers in front of me, Mr. Chairman. It's a very good question, but I believe at least half, maybe, it might be slightly less, slightly more of transfer students actually transfer with at least 60 semester credit hours to a university. And so the idea is that for those that had an opportunity that desired to transfer to a university with a major already in place and having hopefully completed all of their lower division courses for that major, that's the idea behind the field of study curricula. But unfortunately, it's just not being utilized to the extent that we'd like for it to be. And therefore, this new transfer framework is an attempt to try to reinvigorate this and dramatically raise those numbers of usage by transferring students.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. I'll turn things over now so that we can actually talk a little bit more detail about the proposed new transfer framework. And I'll turn it over to Elizabeth Mayer, who's our agency's director of policy. Elizabeth, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Mary, could you forward to the next slide, please? So I'm just going to provide details of the proposed rules. Next slide, please. So the proposed field of study curriculum has 3 components. This first component are going to be the selected discipline-specific Texas core curriculum courses, which have an unspecified number of hours because the hours are going to be determined based upon the recommendation of the discipline-specific subcommittee, which I'm going to get to shortly. And these courses will include only courses that are relevant for the actual major. The second component of this new field of study are going to be the discipline foundation courses. And these are to be a set of courses within a major course of study consisting of up to 12 semester credit hours and will be developed by the discipline-specific subcommittees. The last component are the directed electives, and these are a set of courses within a major course of study consisting of at least 6 semester credit hours specific to each general academic teaching institution and prescribed by the faculty of each general academic teaching institution. I want to note that the directed electives will be submitted to the coordinating board by each receiving university and may include lower division courses critical for student success in that major. So a student is going to be considered field of study complete when entering with all 3 blocks of the courses or all 3 blocks noted above. The university must substitute the block of courses for the receiving institution's lower division requirements for the degree program for the corresponding field of study curriculum. I want to point out that a student may still take lower division coursework after transfer to fulfill non-major related requirements. A student is field of study incomplete when entering with only partial completion of any blocks complete. The university must grant academic credit in the major for each field of study curriculum course completed, but they may also require additional lower division coursework in the degree program's major coursework. The rules also revise the credit transfer dispute resolution process by improving transparency for students about the procedure and allowing students or sending institutions to appeal to the commissioner. Next slide, please. So I want to emphasize that institution will have tools to ensure academic preparation for transfer students matches that required of native students. As I mentioned before, universities will submit directed electives to the coordinating board, and we will maintain and disseminate these courses lists to institutions, academic advisors, and to students. Lastly, if an institution has a truly unique program that may not fit in with the discipline foundation courses that are developed by the subcommittee, then they will have the option to seek an alternative DFC. Next slide, please. So based upon the recommendation of the work group, a new governance structure is established in the proposed rules. The Texas Transfer Advisory Committee will advise the commissioner on the field of study curriculum. They will oversee the development of the field of study curriculum using the expertise of those who are on the discipline-specific subcommittees. The Texas Transfer Advisory Committee will be equally composed of community college and university representatives. And I'm now going to pass it over to Stacy to provide an overview of the comments that have been received on the proposed rules.
Thanks, Elizabeth. The proposed rules were posted to the Texas Register for a 30-day public comment period that began on January 14th. Mary, next slide, please. During that time, 9 comments were received, and they focused on 3 areas of concern: the definition of field of study, the music field of study, and the ability of transfer students to take additional lower division courses once they enrolled in a university. Next slide, please. One comment identified a definitional misalignment between the definition of field of study in the proposed Chapter 1 rules and the proposed Chapter 4 rules. Staff agrees and recommends a revision to align the 2 definitions as laid out here. Next slide, please. Several comments were received that focused on the existing music field of study curriculum and how it would fit into the new transfer framework. The new Texas Transfer Advisory Committee will look at the existing field of study curricula and work to ensure that revisions to the existing and the development of new Texas Transfer Framework field of study curricula are student-centric and provide students with clear pathways to degree attainment. Additionally, the proposed rules allow ample time for the new committee to consider existing field of study curricula. It's important to note that the critical role that the institutions will play in this process, and especially the faculty, in the work that lies ahead. Next slide, please. Comments were received related to a concern that the proposed rules would mean that students could no longer take lower division courses once they transferred to a university. However, that is not the case, as the Texas Transfer Framework field of study would allow universities to require students who are field of study complete to take additional lower division courses that are not major specific. Additionally, the proposed rules allow a student who is not Texas Transfer Field of Study complete to take additional lower division courses in the major, as well as lower division courses that are outside the student's major. Next slide, please. So at this point, that concludes my prepared remarks, and we are happy to address questions at this time.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, real quick, I do have some data in front of me now, just so I can give you a more precise answer to your earlier question. Of the most recent data that we have of students, first-time students that transferred from a community college to a university, approximately 43% transferred with at least 60 semester credit hours and 57% without achieving at least 60 semester credit hours. So certainly for those that transfer with at least an associate's degree, we want to provide a clear pathway, but that's also true for those who are transferring with less than 60 semester credit hours. If we have more transparency and more student-friendly pathways, this will incentivize hopefully more students to take advantage of this new transfer framework. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thanks. It was clear, I didn't understand the term field of study complete, because the field of study is really the whole major. but when you're using it as field of study complete, you just mean that you've taken those prerequisite courses that are the foundational major specific courses that allow you to go to upper division courses.
That's correct.
Yeah,
To be
okay. So it was just
complete.
a
That's right.
definitional issue.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. I had the same question.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, any other questions from board members? I will comment that you've taken, Stacy and Ray and Elizabeth, an extraordinarily complex topic and made it really simple. But I suspect that it ain't really that simple when you start getting into major by major by major. But I really appreciate the presentation. I think it was very well done. Any members? Do you have any questions?
I have one quick one. What safeguard, what checks and balances are in place if one university has a very rigorous history program, say, what checks and balances does this put in place so to where they don't have to accept, credentials in transfer that they feel, aren't as rigorous or weren't as rigorous as will be needed to move forward in their own program?
Yes, sir. I think the first part of that, the first part of this answer, and I'll defer to Stacy and Elizabeth as well, is that there needs to be integrity in the actual process to develop the new Texas, the various majors under the new, or disciplines under the new transfer framework. And that was key. What we discovered through the 6 months of work group discussions was that everybody's there with a good faith commitment to try to do what's best for students. That's always been the case, even with the field of study that had been developed up to this point. The problem is that there just wasn't a process in place for complete buy-in and even accountability for the sectors to hold each other accountable that they're implementing and carrying out the various articulated field of study curricula. So the first thing is to have integrity in the process, and that's what we've done with the and again, this was all a creation of the work group members. So we didn't, do this top down. We did it by input from these 10 work group members, and then extensive interaction with folks in the field over the last 2 months of talking about the proposed new transfer framework. And what we've put in place is a governance structure that ensures that there'll be equal representation from subject matter experts, from faculty members as a field of study curriculum is developed under the new transfer framework. So at the level of these discipline-specific subcommittees, there will be equal and meaningful representation and input. And then beyond that, the governance structure of this TTAC, the Texas Transfer Advisory Committee, again, 24 members, 12 from community colleges, 12 from universities, also has an important role in recommending a field of study under the proposed new transfer framework to the commissioner for ultimate approval by the commissioner, by Commissioner Keller. So that's an important first step. But more specifically, Mr. Wilson, to answer your question, we also knew that it was important to build in some sort of a bypass if necessary. There may be institutions that do have a particular set of lower division courses for a particular major or discipline that they require and that are perhaps somewhat unique to their institution. So what we did is to ensure that there was some flexibility, not just in the foundational courses, but also in what we call the directed electives. Those at least 6 semester credit hours of directed electives allow for every university, every receiving institution to have some discretion as to what they put into that part of the revised field of study under the new framework. So there's some flexibility with the directed electives. But again, if something just doesn't fit, there's also now the possibility of an alternative DFC, which is for an institution to come first to TTAC to make their case to this governing advisory committee, and then for TTAC to decide if they're going to recommend to the commissioner that the commissioner consider and perhaps approve an alternative approach because an institution has a unique need for a particular major or discipline. So we tried to account for this in various ways because it really came up quite a bit. during our 6 months or so of discussion. Stacy, Elizabeth, please jump in, Stacy. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you did great. The only thing I would add is the importance of those discipline-specific work groups that will be led by faculty. And once you get faculty from both the 2-year and the 4-year institutions together, they can hash out any issues related to rigor or those very challenging issues that they will face.
So the rigor, that's an interesting question. I mean, there's really two issues here. I mean, what I think Ray had talked about, is sort of course matching, right? In other words, like, okay, these courses qualify for our particular major, in this university. The rigor, I mean, I suppose the first option that a university has is just simply, use Welcome's example, in history. Well, we're just not going to take any transfers, right? I mean, they had that option, correct?
Yeah, Mr.
Go
Chairman,
ahead.
they would have the option of just not admitting the transfer students. I mean, if they really felt strongly about it. But to Ray and Stacy's point, the way the framework is put together gives them the ability to say, for example, look, if you're going to be successful in our economics program, like you're going to have some more advanced statistics courses or advanced econometrics course, for example. And then there's this other option where, we have some programs in Texas that are counted among the very best in the world. And so some of these programs might need to be outliers. So there might need to be like a particular, for example, the North Texas music performance is recognized among the best in the world. They might want to petition for an alternative DFC and an alternative pathway that would be more aligned with their program. And there are some other examples like that. So one of the things I think is especially creative and powerful about the way the framework is put together is you do have these mechanisms both to ensure flexibility when there's specific courses that students are going to need to be successful, or there are unique programs, but at the same time, you're able to provide transparency. And as you said in your initial comments, take something that's enormously complex and make it more consumable for students across the state.
Yeah, my question, I mean, really, kind of coming off what Welcome had said, where it was a great question, and then Stacy intimated. It's one thing when you, like I said, line up specific courses. You need advanced statistics to go to this, econometrics major or whatever. But my question, and sort of where it gets fuzzy and hard to define, is when you do talk about rigor and expectation. And I guess my question is, in those committees, does that come up? Because it just seems like to me that, if they're concerned about a particular level of rigor, they just don't have to admit transfer students, into a particular major. I mean, that's a solution, I think, that would be on the table.
That's right. The other piece I'd throw in there is that in the original development and implementation of field of study curriculum, there's an important piece that I think was missing that is going to be critical in the implementation of this, and that's that you don't just want to get the 2-year and the 4-year faculty together and have them deliberate with each other. You want to be able to support and help inform those deliberations, right? So you don't just want to have sort of folks saying, well, your courses aren't as good as, or my courses are as good as, that kind of thing. But also you need the data for what's actually happening with students. And of course, we have incredibly rich data that we're, on another front, moving aggressively to be able to make that data more accessible, more useful. Key part of that is going to be mapping out student pathways. And in fact, we're commissioning some work right now with the Center for Computational Engineering at UT Austin to do just that, to map transfer students' pathways so that you can bring that data into the conversations. Just a quick anecdote that a friend of mine who's an associate dean at a university was talking to me about these issues, and he'd just come out of a faculty meeting where the faculty were pretty animated about like this course absolutely has to be a prerequisite for that course, so the students are not going to be prepared. And he had just looked at the data and he said, we waive that requirement half the time anyway, and the students do fine, right? So there's the principled discussions. And then, but we need to ground that in some empirical evidence, and that's a component that is going to be new. So we've got a governance structure and also commitment from the agency to support these deliberations and make sure that the institutions have the best information that's available to inform their discussions.
Yeah, that's excellent. I mean, and because of course where I was going, and you answered it right on. Is this fuzzy, soft, discussion of rigor. There's not. You could devolve into just a complete mess. But your answer is okay. Let's do student pathways. We'll have data, and data will really inform those discussions. So that's excellent. You guys have done a great job. Both implementing the SB 25, getting everybody together, and then having this ability to monitor with data. I think it's very exciting. Good work.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And if I could, I want to say deeply appreciate the work of our team. Again, all of this work was done in the context of when they're also supporting institutions in global pandemic, right? So, they did not take our foot off the gas pedal all this last year, working intensely with the institutions, and in the institutions, particularly our co-chairs, Jacob Farre from the Association of Community Colleges, James Hallmark from A&M System, really put in a lot of hard work and deeply committed to the outcomes here. And we're very excited about where we are and to be able to bring this to you all for adoption and then subsequent implementation.
All right, members, do you have any other questions? Well, hearing none, let's see, item 3C1 is consideration and possible adoption of new rules in the Texas Administration Code. Administrative Code, Title 9, Chapter 1, Subchapter 5, Sections 1.237 to 1.243 of the Board Rules concerning the creation of the Texas Transfer Advisory Committee and discipline-specific subcommittees. May I have a motion to adopt the new rules in the Texas Administration Code, Title 19, Chapter 1, Subchapter 5, Sections 1.237 to 1.243 of Board Rules.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this is Sam Torn, and I apologize. I've been having technical difficulty figuring out how to get unmuted.
Oh,
So
okay.
I interrupted your prelude to the motion, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I'm still a little confused on one issue regarding to this whole rigor question. Is it okay if I ask one final question?
Oh, absolutely. Ask as many as you want.
Hey, Shauna.
Okay, so I have a real life example. I know a young man who was admitted to the University of Texas. He wanted to go to the McCombs School of Business, was not admitted to the McCombs School of Business, so spent his first year doing what was necessary to qualify to transfer internally into the McCombs School of Business. So he made a 4.0 in the courses he had to take and was admitted as a sophomore into the McCombs School of Business. What my question is are students like that who are at an institution of rigor, like an A&M or Texas, are they protected on a level playing field from students from a less rigorous institution trying to transfer into that same major?
And that's a great question, Mr. Torn, because of course, the business schools with flagships or computer science programs. I mentioned music performance programs. We do have some highly competitive programs across the state, and so two things. So one is the combination of what we've laid out in the transfer framework, and also the fact that institutions are going to have to have recommended course sequences for all their programs is going to make much more transparent for all students, whether you start as a first-time full-time in college, or you start at a community college and you want to transfer. So that, first of all, that it levels the playing field in one sense, that it just makes it more transparent. But when it comes to admission to those programs that are highly competitive, those decisions are all left with the institution. So that's an important distinction. So it's not an entitlement to transfer. It's a guarantee that if you are admitted, and also to the chairman's question earlier, if you are admitted to a program, or if you are admitted to an institution and to an academic program, then you can be assured that your courses are going to transfer, but you don't have an entitlement to that admission. So there are some of our programs in the state that take very, very few community college transfers. I know of one of our engineering programs that they'll take 6 or 7 community college transfer, because there's so many internal transfers within the university. So it's important to be clear that the decision about admission to institutions or programs still rests with the institution.
Thank you.
Okay, well, good. It was a great question, great point of clarification. Okay, so hearing no other questions, I hope that echo is not mine. But anyway, hearing no further questions, may I have a motion to adopt the new rules of the Texas Administration Code, Title 19, Chapter 1, Subchapter 5, Sections 1.237 to 1.243 of the Board Rules concerning the creation of the Texas Transfer Advisory Committee and Discipline-Specific Subcommittee?
Aye.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Anwar. I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Williams. Any other discussion? So hearing none, when I call your name, please state your vote. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. Mr. Anwar?
Aye.
Dr. Frias?
Aye.
Ms. Schwartz?
Aye.
Mr. Thorne?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
And I vote aye myself. Motion passes. Item 3C is consideration. Remember, we kind of had the presentation and the questions, and then so we're just kind of going through the specific motions all at once. Item 3C2 is consideration of the repeal of Texas Administration Code Title 19, Part 1, Chapter 4, Subchapter B, Section 4.21 to 4.36, and the possible adoption of and new rules in Chapter 4, Subchapter B, Sections 4.21 to 4.38 of Board Rules concerning transfer of credit, core curriculum, field of study, and curriculum, and field of study curricula. May I have a motion to approve that repeal and adoption of new rules?
So moved, Emma Schwartz.
Motion by Ms. Schwartz. Do I have a second?
Second, Fred.
Dr. Frias, second. Any further discussion? Members, when I call your name, please state your vote. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. Mr. Anwar?
Aye.
Dr. Frias?
Aye.
Ms. Schwartz?
Aye.
Mr. Thorne?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
And I vote aye myself. The motion passes. Item 3C3 is consideration of the repeal of Texas Administration Code Title 9, Part 1, Chapter 27, subchapters B through double O of sections 27.121 to 27.907 of board rules concerning fields of study. May I have a motion for repeal of those board rules?
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Frias, do I have a second?
Second, Donna.
A second by Ms. Williams. Members, when I call your name, please state your vote. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. Mr. Anwar?
Aye.
Dr. Frias?
Aye.
Ms. Swartz? Ms. Torn?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
And I vote aye myself. The motion passes. That concludes our special called board meeting. The time is now 1:48 p.m. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So
Fred.
moved.
Motion by Dr. Frias, second by Ms. Williams. All in favor, just at your leisure, say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? The roll call not necessary. The motion carries and we are adjourned. Thank you. And thank you, staff, for very good work on a very important issue.